Zwan was an American alternative rock supergroup that formed in 2001 by Billy Corgan and Jimmy Chamberlin following the breakup of the Smashing Pumpkins. The band's formation and their brief existence is a story of creative promise, internal tensions, and ultimately a swift demise that I've actually had a lot of people request for me to cover. You can't really talk about Zwan without first discussing the Smashing Pumpkins. The group formed in Chicago, Illinois in 1988. They were founded by frontman Billy Corgan and guitarist James Iha. They soon added bassist Darcy Retzky and drummer Jimmy Chamberlin to complete the original and classic lineup. By 91, the Smashing Pumpkins released their debut record, Gish, which achieved moderate success and garnered critical acclaim. However, it was their second album, 1993's Siamese Dream, that propelled them to mainstream popularity. The band's success continued to grow with the release of their ambitious double album, 1995's Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. The album ended up debuting at number 1 on the Billboard album chart. Throughout the 90s, the band faced various challenges, including drug issues and internal tensions. Then in 1996, touring keyboardist Jonathan Melvoin died from a heroin overdose, and drummer Jimmy Chamberlin was temporarily fired due to his own substance abuse issues. The band's sound evolved over time, incorporating more gothic rock, metal, and electronica. By the late 90s, the Pumpkins were struggling with diminishing returns as their commercial success had dwindled and they had ongoing internal conflicts. Bassist Darcy Retzky left the band in 1999 and was replaced by Melissa Oftermauer. The group released what would be their final album of the era, which was called Machina, the Machines of God. On May 23, 2000, Billy Corgan announced that the group would be breaking up. The group played their farewell show on December 2, 2000, a 4-hour blistering set at the Cabaret Metro in Chicago, where they made their debut 12 years earlier. This marked the end of the first era of the Smashing Pumpkins, concluding a tumultuous but highly influential period in alternative rock history. After the dust settled on the Smashing Pumpkins breakup, frontman and leader Billy Corgan briefly played some shows with New Order as their guitarist. Wanting a new musical direction, though, he found some inspiration during a trip to Italy with his then-girlfriend at the time. It was in Italy he came up with the name Zwan, and he started writing new songs in Salt Lake City. He admitted that at the time he was listening to a lot of folk music and thought that maybe he'd release a solo record down the road. He soon enlisted former Pumpkins drummer Jimmy Chamberlin and ex-Skunk member Matt Sweeney, an old friend that the pair had known for about 13 years or so. Sweeney was even thanked in the liner notes for the Pumpkins album Siamese Dream. Sweeney soon recruited a friend of his, David Pageau, to play bass from the group Slint. Pageau claimed he wasn't really a big Pumpkins fan, as he told an interviewer here.
Knocked on Matt's door and Corgan answers the door, and I don't know anything about the Smashing Pumpkins. I never met him. I wasn't even sure what he looked like, really. I didn't know anything about the Pumpkins, despite having seen them at Lollapalooza like 5 times, because I was on the side stage with King Kong. I would watch the Pumpkins just more out of curiosity, like, why does everyone like this so much? I'd watch the audience be like, everyone's so into it, and I just couldn't fathom, like, the music wasn't engaging me as much as the audience being stoked about it, you know.
They're really good, but it's also very mannered.
I don't know what it was. I just didn't get it.
By 2002, a Perfect Circle bassist, Paz Lanchanton, joined the band, and Pageau was moved to third guitarist. Corgan told Uncut, "Next thing you know, we're talking about having a band. It starts to take shape, and the thing I'm noticing is I'm having fun. I haven't had fun for years. Like, you just sit together with a couple buddies and play. So it was like, maybe I should have a band where I can have fun. It'll be low stress. I can write some good pop music." As for the name Zwan, there was an interview that Corgan gave where he claimed the band had no particular meaning, despite teasing a few options.
Here's where we go to the expensive graphics. Okay. Zwan means A, swan with a Z, B, design in Japanese, C, in Russian, the sound that you make when you ring a bell, the sort of ding, or D, right, swan, right, or D, a form of Greek span.
Yes, it's a very popular European lunch meat, and I'm not kidding, and we're being faced with an enormous lawsuit. But we love the lunch meat.
No, we're not.
Oh, we're not?
No, we're not. And be happy you're not.
I'll take B for 50.
Actually, the answer is really E, none of the above. It's a little bit of a put on for Billy Corgan, so congratulations
What does it
to
mean?
Zwan.
Right.
None of the above just means
Zwan, just a made-up word.
it's a made-up word.
Zwan started touring in late 2001, but the band's management and their own website offered little to no information to the press. They didn't give journalists free tickets or the opportunity to photograph the group together or even interview the band. MTV was one of the few press outlets that managed to sneak an interview with one of the members. During a 2001 show, the networks chatted with Jimmy Chamberlin, who spilled the beans that Zwan was planning on issuing an album sometime in 2002. There existed two different incarnations of Zwan. The first and most common version was called True Poets of Zwan, sometimes simply referred to as Zwan. They had three guitarists, a bassist, and a drummer. The sole album that the band later released was credited to as True Poets of Zwan in the liner notes. The other incarnation was Jolly Zwan, an acoustic version of the band, which also featured cellist Anna Linchanton, which was Pa's sister. This version of the band was supposed to put out an acoustic album, but it never came to fruition. Corgan, Linda Strawberry, and Matt Sweeney also created the soundtrack for the movie Spun, which was directed by Jonas Åkerlund, and they were referred to as the Jolly Zwan. For the band, Corgan had written something in the order of 100 songs. But they hadn't yet secured a record deal. Corgan was funding everything in the band's early days. The audiences who also attended their early shows were given a glimpse into Corgan's state of mind, which seemed to have been influenced a lot by religion. It was best exemplified by songs like the 14-minute plus Jesus I, Mary Star of the Sea, and Declaration of Faith. As for Corgan's religious awakening, when the band was working on material in Key West, Florida, Corgan recalled, "Off to the side was a grotto of the Virgin Mary that I used to go and pray at to find some clarity and solace. I asked Mother Mary there to help me change the direction of my life, my negative attitudes, and to heal my broken heart. I promised Mary that, in tribute to her, I would name the album in her honor, and thereby honor the place when I found comfort in hours of need." By late 2002, it was announced that the band had inked a deal with Reprise Records, who was planning on issuing the group's debut album sometime in January or early February. Despite concerns about Corgan's previous reputation as being a dictator or a control freak, the recording process was a collaborative effort, at least according to interviews that the members gave at the time. But years later, it seemed like Corgan's bandmates told a different story.
Of when we were still writing the album, of just me and Matt, Paz, and Jimmy, just all our parts for the songs. And Matt and I worked really hard to have all this guitar interplay where we're intersecting, and we'll join at times, then we'll split off and play these complementary parts. And we worked out all this intricate stuff, and Billy just put bar chords over everything, just like swamp, like you can't hear any of the stuff that we did. I would like to dig up those CDs just to show to people. Recording started is when it all changed, where it fully became Billy's thing. And that's when it all changed. And when I started to lose interest too. Trying to, use Billy's, like he would come up with the songs, or he would have final say on the songs. And then we would try to do stuff on guitar that would make it compelling for people that maybe, I don't know. It was like a meeting of minds, but I think that all got sort of steamrolled,
Yeah.
The group's first and only album, titled Mary Star of the Sea, saw January 28th, 2003 release. Zwan's sole album was noted for its more uplifting pop rock influenced sound, which stood in stark contrast to the dark and drab sound of the Smashing Pumpkins. Arriving several months before the album was their debut single, Honestly, which was issued in November of 2002. The song also contained an acoustic B-side of Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast.
66, the number of the beast.
honestly peaked at number 21 on the US mainstream rock tracks chart and number 7 on the alternative airplay chart. It also charted in several European countries in addition to Canada and Australia. There was a second single issued from the album, but it was only released in the UK, with the song Lyric that peaked at number 44 on the UK chart. In doing TV appearances on late-night shows like Letterman, the band was simply referred to as Zwan with no reference to Billy Corgan. Even in the liner notes, Corgan is credited as Billy Burke, a possible reference to actress Billie Burke, who portrayed the good witch Glinda in The Wizard of Oz. Corgan perhaps wanted to change the public persona that people had of him. As for critics, they seem to love the album, with it winning rave reviews. Mary Star of the Sea peaked at number 3 on the Billboard chart, selling around 250,000 copies total. It wouldn't come close to outselling any of the Smashing Pumpkins albums. There was also some rough times ahead. Zwan ended up canceling a big summer tour that was planned in 2003, less than a year after their debut record came out. Corgan appeared on the Chicago news station WGN in September of 2003 to announce the group's breakup.
When we were talking on the phone the other day, you told me some pretty blockbusting news about your sort of current band.
Yeah, Zwan broke up, so a couple of people asked me, oh, why didn't you tell anybody? And I just didn't think.
Corgan revealed, I think my heart was in the Smashing Pumpkins. I think it was naive of me to think that I could find something that would mean as much to me. I really enjoyed my experience with Zwan, but at the end of the day, without that sense of deeper family loyalty, it becomes like anything else. Following the dissolution of Zwan, Corgan turned his attention towards his first solo record, 2005's The Future Embrace. It didn't take long for him to start the Smashing Pumpkins shortly afterwards, but in doing press for his first solo record, he was pretty blunt about what happened behind the scenes. He blamed his bandmates' inappropriate behavior for the band's premature destruction, citing drugs, mistrust, and sex. Corgan added, what Zwan should have been was a band that got together for a couple gigs and that was it. Once it became a serious endeavor, that was the fatal error. You can't take indie musicians and expect them to stop acting like indie musicians. I grew up playing sports. I want to win and get to the highest level. For Corgan, the cracks started to show once the band was in the studio making their first record. While Chamberlin and Corgan seemed to have open communication between the two of them, Corgan took issue with the rest of his bandmates' attitudes, citing their reluctance or indifference to practicing, as he claimed they wanted to hang out at bars instead. Corgan added, and then you get into what I would call cataclysmic behavioral stuff. Sex acts between band members in public, people carrying drugs across borders. I just tried to do what I've always done, which is to patch it up and roll it out. You go into a denial state. I got snookered in by some really bad people. It's embarrassing to me, but it wised me up to why I play and who I love, and it made me appreciate my old band even more. Corgan's ex-bandmates have offered their own takes on what went wrong. Padjo added, it was always Billy's project, but the whole process of making the record became such a business, such an ordeal. Padjo added in an interview with Disco Graffiti that Paz and Billy were really bumping heads on tour, as she was pretty outspoken, and she wasn't afraid of Billy as well.
And we kind of just fizzled out, you know. We were on tour in Europe, and then
it was 7 months after the record came out, he put an end to the band, right?
Yeah, and he just ended the tour and stuff. It was, you know, he and Paz were butting heads because Paz was never intimidated by him and would always speak her mind, like to her credit, I think. So he ended up kicking her out, and he asked me if I would play bass. And I think I just never replied, because my idea was that if Paz or Matt isn't in the band, then I don't want to be in the band. So as soon as he kicked her out, I was like, okay, that means I'm not in. So it's just he and Matt and Jimmy now. And then he just dissolved it. We just all sort of stopped talking to each other, except for Matt and Paz and I. We all stayed in touch.
A good friend of Nastanovich's, whose name is Patrick Fleming, wanted me to ask you if there were ever discussions about his Zwan reunion.
Wow. Gosh, if there were discussions at all, that would be surprising, because I haven't talked to Billy since then. You know, I think the last I heard from him was that email asking if I would go back to playing bass. That was his idea for the band at that point. I haven't seen him or talked to him since then.
And Lenchantin even gave an interview to Rolling Stone a few years ago where she rebuffed some of Billy's claims while also taking a shot at his mentality at the time. She told the magazine, "I'm going to be blunt. If anyone is in the ring with Billy Corgan, it's Billy Corgan. He's been competing with himself since Siamese Dream came out. It really affected him. He was able to sell 16 million records in the CD era. Now we're getting into another era, referring to the Napster era. This era is not about that." She also took aim at Corgan's claim about the cataclysmic behavior stuff, which she laughed off, adding, "This is so Billy-esque. He liked conflict. His thing was, if we're going to fight, let's do it in the media." She added that Corgan didn't even communicate to the rest of the band that they had broken up, and they either saw it on TV or read about it in the paper. And for Lenchantin, the breakup came at a particularly bad time for her. She revealed that Zwan's breakup was announced the day her brother had just taken his life. He was a musician too, and his band actually opened for Zwan. She added, "If anything, I was relieved at that point. I had to take care of a lot of things. My brother was my best friend. Billy knew that, and he did this anyway. I didn't care. I was in another place. It took a lot of healing." But she was quick to point out that at the beginning of Zwan, it did really feel exciting. The band played Saturday Night Live, and she thought one cool thing that Billy did was play one of the songs on the show that she co-wrote, the track Settle Down. She did have a lot of praise for drummer Jimmy Chamberlin. In the subsequent years, Corgan has performed Zwan songs live, but he's ruled out reuniting with his former bandmates. But a few years ago, Corgan did announce that he was, in fact, working on a Zwan box set, telling Rolling Stone, "I'm very excited because honestly, I personally think the best Zwan music didn't get released, the acoustic side of the band, which is really what we should have done and not tried to do an alternative pop record. That would have been a stronger effort, I think, and a more timeless thing." That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.